Husbands and dads, if you are struggling with work-life balance, listen up. This episode is for you. I'm super excited to get into this. And this is actually going to be one of a 6-part series on work-life balance. And we're going to cover all things, including why you should go small. What about multitasking? What about discipline? What about willpower? Work-life balance. And then we're going to talk about this concept that big is bad. And I'm excited to get into this because it's probably the number one question that I get from dads and husbands is, Joel, how do we manage work-life balance? Probably the number one thing I hear next to I'm not present with my kids. And so we're going to cover that first topic right now, all about work-life balance today. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Joel Evan. I'm a former first responder, former police officer of 15 years, turned life coach, holistic health coach, best-selling author. I run a group called First Responder Fathers, and I'm dedicated to helping men build unshakable marriages and deeper connection with their kids. If any of you know my story, for 10 years, my marriage was a complete disaster. I was not present. I was working too much, speaking of work-life balance. And I was lost. I was unconscious, and I really thought my wife and kids were the problem. And my wife finally came to me about a couple of years ago and said, Joel, you need to change. And I was like, you're crazy. You need to change. The kids need to change. I'm not the problem. I've done everything. I've read all the books. I have all the certifications. Like, I'm not the problem. And guess what? The more I dug in and I went deeper, I kept finding out, wow, I think I am the problem. I actually used a different word, an expletive word. I said, I think I'm an a-hole. So I actually realized that the deeper I went, I'm like, man, I still really am an a-hole. And I thought I wasn't, and I am. So I learned a lot of mistakes. I hired the best coaches. I took all the parenting coaches and seminars, and I dove all in my family. I probably spent over 100,000 on this growth over the last 10 years. And it's made the biggest difference. And so I like to share some of the tips and the tricks that I've learned, the strategies that have moved the needle the most for me. And I'm going to share that with you today and some of these concepts that I talk about in my private group as well. If you just want to be part of the first responder community, there's a free Facebook group. You can join that. I have a free guide that I give to all the men. It's like 20 pages long. I mean, really, if you just follow the simplicity in that guide, you could upgrade your marriage to new levels. So if you want that, I'll send it to you for free. Just simply comment on this video, just say the word guide, and I will send that to you. Without further ado, let's jump in. Really quick, before I jump in, I'm wearing this awesome t-shirt that I got from Sworn Loyalty. So check them out. They're a up-and-coming mom and pop, would say, store that's really making a difference in the first responder community. And they're dedicated to changing the paradigm of what education is and what it means to be a hero and what it means to be courageous. And so I really love that. And I'm rocking one of their tees. So check that out. All right, let's get into this idea about balance. I'm here to tell you right now, balance is a complete lie. And the reason we've been told this lie is, if you think about it, in the 20th century, if you even go back to like when people were, we were hunter-gatherers for like 12,000 years. Like, we always were working. And then we hit the Industrial Revolution, where farming became the new norm. And so now we had the work broken up into these work days. Now, moving in the 20th century, you've got men being the breadwinners, right? And the women stay at home and they take care of the home. But guess what? In the 90s, we saw that that's no longer true. Now you got men and women both being the breadwinners. There is no homemaker. And so we're always trying to get more time, right? But here's the problem. We try to achieve balance by staying in the middle because it sounds appealing. It sounds like the right thing to do. Don't get too far out of the middle. Don't get far to the extremes. You're extremes, right? You can't. Why are you waking up at 4 a.m.? Why would you do that? Oh, you don't want to do that. You're going to get burnt out. You're going to get stressed, right? It's a negative thing that we look at in society. You say, oh, Joel's so successful with his business. Yeah, but he has no time for his family, right? Everything is an extreme. Now, the problem with, though, living in the middle is that it prevents you from becoming extraordinary. It prevents you from actually making extraordinary time to commit to anything. And so in your effort to attend all the things, everything gets shortchanged. Nothing gets done. And the reason we don't want to pursue balance, and by the way, I've been there many times trying to pursue balance. The reason we shouldn't pursue balance is that the magic never happens in the middle, baby. Magic happens in the extremes. And the dilemma is that chasing extremes presents real life challenges, as you know. And the problem is we don't know how to manage our lives while we're out at these extremes. And so we're going to talk about that today in this video. And we know, right? If you work too long, your personal life suffers. And then you start saying things like, man, I have no life. I'm just always working. Or I have no life. I'm just always with the kids, right? And we know it's true. Time waits for no one. I'm going to tell you a quick story, actually. I know a man and a woman, and the woman was a school teacher, and the man was actually a police officer. And, the woman would go out and she would actually buy clothes because she was planning for her retirement. She was planning for the day that they were going to travel and retire and live the good life. And guess what? Her final year being a school teacher, she got sick. She got cancer and she died. They never had that trip. And so we know that time waits for no one. You push something to an extreme and you postpone it, that could just become permanent, right? I know several entrepreneurs, including myself. One of my best friends, Chris, he built a company from nothing, built it all the way up. He was working around the clock. He built this company, and then guess what? He did the ultimate entrepreneur dream. He got to sell it for millions of dollars. Woohoo! He made it, right? And he told me, when he was building the business, he said, man, I was never home and I rarely even saw my kids or family. But now I have all this money. I take them on vacation and I'm just making up for lost time. You know how it is. He said, you know how it is, right? Now that I have the money, I have the time. I'm getting all those years back. My question to you is, though, do you really think you can ever get back those years? Do you really ever think you can get back a child's bedtime story or a birthday? Is a party at 5 years old with their imaginary friends and pals, is that the same as a dinner of a teen with their high school friends? Is attending a soccer game as a child the same as a soccer game as a teen? Is it? Because my thing is, when you gamble with your time, you may be placing a bet that you can't cover. And so achieving balance is a lie. So the question is, what do you do? Here's the answer. Counterbalance. You got to counterbalance. So the things that we presume to have balance over, it's really just an entire big act of counterbalancing. The best example I can think of is a ballerina, right? A ballerina is on her toes. I'm saying her, most likely. A ballerina is in pose, in point is what they call it, where she can appear weightless, like floating in the air. The very idea of this is, you can just imagine balance, grace. But if you look really, really close, you're going to notice that her toes, they're vibrating rapidly. They're making minute adjustments just to keep that balance. So counterbalancing, done right, it gives the illusion of balance. If you're leaving some things undone, this is a necessary trade-off for extraordinary results. I'm going to say that again. Leaving some things undone is a necessary trade-off for extraordinary results. The idea of counterbalancing is that you never go so far that you can't find your way back, or that you stay so long that there's nothing waiting for you when you return. Here's the key, guys. You're going to write this one down. To achieve extraordinary results, you must choose what matters most and give it your all the time that it demands. And this requires that you get extremely out of balance in relation to all of the work issues, with only infrequent counterbalancing to address them. So the question really is, when it comes to balance, it's really just a question of priority. And when you change your language from balancing to prioritizing, you start to see that your choices more clearly are going to open up the door to changing your destiny. And so when you act on your priority, you're automatically going to go out of balance. You're automatically out of balance because you're giving more time to one thing over another. Now, the challenge here becomes, how long can you stay on your priority? To be able to address your priorities outside of work, you got to be clear about your most important work priority so that you can get that done. And then you got to go home and be clear about what are your priorities there so you can get back to work. Hence counterbalancing. So I want to leave you with 3 big ideas to kind of wrap this thing in a bow. Number 1, I want you to think about this. Think about 2 balancing buckets. You got your work life and your personal life. And these are in two distinct buckets. Do not try to compartmentalize them. All you're doing is you're just counterbalancing. That's it. Each has its own counterbalancing goals and approaches. Okay. Number two, counterbalancing your work bucket. I want you to view work as involving a skill or knowledge that has to be mastered. The more you do this, you're going to see it's going to cause you to give disproportionate time to your one thing, and it's going to throw the rest of your workday, your week, your month, and your year continually out of balance. So your work is divided into two big distinct areas, okay? What matters most and everything else. And so you are going to have to take what matters most to the extremes. And you're going to have to be okay with that. And then just be okay with whatever happens to the rest, because your professional success depends on it. Okay. And the last big point is counterbalance your personal life bucket. Just like you did with your work bucket, counterbalance your personal work. You counterbalance your personal life bucket. I want you to acknowledge that your life has multiple areas and that each one of them requires a minimum of attention for you to actually feel that you have a life, right? And if you drop any one and you feel like you're going to feel the effects, right? You drop any one of them, you're going to feel it. And this is going to require that you have constant awareness. You can't ever go too far long out to the extremes without counterbalancing. Because if you don't, then you're never going to be active in all areas of life. And that's when you feel overwhelmed because you're only counterbalancing a little bit. You go here, you go back there, and you're trying to do these multitasking, which we're going to talk in one of the next lives. But it really requires that you go to the extreme and then you come back to the extreme. Your personal life requires this, guys. An extraordinary life is all about counterbalancing. An extraordinary life is just a simple counterbalancing act. I hope you found this video helpful for work-life balance. This is going to be the first of a 6-part series addressed to husbands and dads that want to level up their game, build unshakable marriages, build deeper connection with their kids. Every Wednesday I go live. Tune in. If you want more information, you need help from me, or you have questions for me and anything I can address, please let me know. Comment below. I'll see you guys next week.